Hello traders, and welcome to another exciting edition of our weekly XAUSD and GBPUSD trade analysis. Okay, so I'm excited to be here with you as we dive into the dynamic world of Forex trading. So in today's video, we'll be dissecting the price action for XAUSD and GBPUSD, identifying key and potential levels on the charts, and discussing potential strategies for the week ahead.
Right here on my screen is GBP USD on the daily time frame, as you can see. So guys, as you can see on the screen, we had a few upward movements last week for GBP USD. There are some markup zones that we'll be paying close attention to for this week for GBP USD. So this is one of the zones, as you can see right here. As you can see, there was a test of this zone. Price tested this zone and then came back to retest it right here. So right here on GBPUSD on the daily time frame, guys, we'll be expecting a retest of this zone before a drop, or possibly a breakout of this zone to the next resistance zone. We're expecting price to move upward to break out of this zone to the next resistance zone above before there will be a drop to the downside. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from its current position, remember we always do a flip side scenario on what we should expect. So on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from where it is, we will be expecting a retest of this zone and then a continuation to the downside to the support zone just below that resistance zone. So generally on GBPUSD on the daily time frame, we're expecting continuation to the upside for price to break out of this resistance zone right here to the next resistance zone just above. But on the flip side, if price should reverse from where it is, we'll be expecting price to move downward to this support zone right here, or even to the next support zone just below. So we'll move over to the 4 hours time frame so we can get a clearer picture of what we should be expecting there. So on the 4 hours time frame for GBPUSD, it's not very different from what we're expecting on the daily time frame. As you can see, the zones that we marked out are very clear. As you can see, this is a very valid support zone right here. This is also another very valid support zone, and this is also a very valid resistance zone. So for next week, for the 4 hours time frame, we're expecting price to move upward, still continue upward to this resistance zone, or possibly break out of it to the next resistance zone above. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from its current position, we're expecting a drop from price to this support zone right here, or possibly the next support zone just below. So we're expecting continuation of price to this support zone, or possibly a breakout of that zone to the next resistance zone above. But on the flip side, if price decides to continue downward or reverse from its current position, we'll be expecting a drop from price to this support zone right here, or possibly to the next support zone just below on the 4 hours time frame, guys. So generally on the 4 hours time frame, we are still looking at a very bullish market for GBPUSD. So we're expecting continuation to the upside, expecting price to still move up from where it is to the next resistance zone just above. On the flip side, if it decides to reverse, depending on the opening of the price on Monday, if it decides to reverse from its current position, we're expecting a drop from price to this support zone right here, or even the support zone just below. So guys, we'll still move over to the 1 hour time frame so we can get clearer picture and see more zones that we couldn't see very visibly on the 4 hours time frame, guys. This is the 1 hour time frame. Remember, we always do a top-down analysis from the higher time frame to the lower time frame, so we can ascertain clearer zones and get clearer insight of what we should be expecting for next week. You can see that this is a very valid resistance zone right here. As you can see, this right here also makes it a very valid resistance zone. Price came to test here before dropping downward, so this is also, you can take this as a very valid resistance zone too. So right here on the position of price, we're expecting to move upward to this zone, possibly break out of it to the next resistance zone, which is right here. But on the flip side, if price reverses from its current position, which is right here, we're expecting a drop from price to this support zone right here. So some bullish movement for GBPUSD to this resistance zone right here, or possibly a breakout to the next resistance zone, which is right here just above. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from its current position, we'll be expecting a drop to this support zone right here. So generally for GBPUSD, like I said, we're expecting bullish movement from next week to either of this resistance zone just here, either of them. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from the current position, we're expecting it to either respect this zone before dropping right here, or possibly respect this resistance zone just above before dropping to this support zone right here. So guys, that will be all for GBPUSD. Let's move over to XAUSD to also see some zones that we can look out for and expect some movement for next week. Alright guys, so this is XAUSD right here on my screen. On the daily time frame, as you can see, there are some key marked out zones that were marked out for last week, of which we were expecting XAUSD to either move to or even respect, of which it did. This was one of the zones we were expecting XAU to come down to retest, of which it did, and even broke out from. So on the daily time frame for XAUSD, as you can see, XAUSD moved upward to this resistance zone right here, and then dropped to this support zone, and then it moved upward from this support zone, respect this resistance zone, and even broke out of it before dropping to this zone. So on the daily time frame for XAUSD, we'll still be expecting some downward movement, guys. Expecting a drop to this support zone, to respect this support zone, because this is the very valid support zone on the daily time frame. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from where it is, that's continue upward, we'll be expecting movement to the upside to respect either of this resistance zone right here. So we're expecting movement to the upside to respect this resistance zone before dropping, or possibly respect the resistance zone, the very valid resistance zone just above. So guys, let's move on to the 4 hours time frame to get a clearer picture of what we are looking at right here. Okay, this is the 4 hours time frame for XAUUSD, guys. This is the 4 hours time frame. So right here on my screen, you can see that some of the zones we marked out on the daily time frame are clearly very visible right here. Like this was one of the zones we marked out, which is very visible right here. This is also one of the zones. This is one of the support zones we marked out. So guys, looking at the current position of price, we'll be expecting a downward movement of price to this support zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to respect this zone right here, which is this resistance zone, which it has turned into a support, if price decides to respect it, we'll be expecting the movement of price to the upside to the next resistance zone just above. So I'll draw that out real quick so we don't get really confused. So if price decides to continue downward, we'll be expecting the downward movement of price for next week to respect this resistance zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from its current position, we'll be expecting price to respect this newly formed support zone and then continue to the upside, next resistance zone just above, guys. So generally for XAUUSD on the 4 hours time frame, we're expecting a drop down, continuation to the downside to this support zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to respect this support zone before continuing upward, we're expecting price to reverse from its current position to respect this resistance zone right here before continuing to the next resistance zone, guys. So let's move on to the 1 hour time frame to get a clearer picture of what we're talking about, guys. So this is the 1 hour time frame for XAUUSD, as you can see on my screen. So I'll just zoom in real quick so you can see all the movements of price for last week. So guys, Right here on my screen is the 1 hour time frame for XAUSD. As you can see, this is a very valid support zone for which price has been holding for a while before breaking out last week. So guys, right here on the 1 hour time frame, we'll be expecting price to continue downward. We'll be expecting some downward movement of price for next week to this support zone. It's not very different from what we expected on the 4 hours time frame. We'll be expecting the downward movement of price to this support zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse from where it is upward, we're expecting price to either respect this resistance zone before dropping, or possibly break out of it to respect the next resistance zone just above. So we are expecting continuation to the downside for price on next week on the 1 hour time frame. But on the flip side, we're expecting price to respect this support zone, of which it has already done. We're expecting price to respect this support zone right here before continuing to the upside, to either respect this resistance zone or possibly break out of it to the next resistance zone just above, which is this resistance zone right here. So generally guys, for XAUSD for next week, we'll be expecting a continuation to the downside to this support zone right here. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse, depending on the opening of the market on Monday, we'll be expecting movements to respect this resistance zone or probably break out of it to the next resistance zone just above, which is right here. So thank you so much. That will be all for XAUUSD guys. Okay guys, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of our weekly forecast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also turn on the notification so as to get notified whenever we post our weekly forecast. And also guys, please don't forget to join us on our weekly webinars, which are hosted every Wednesdays. You can check through the description of this video to get the link to our Telegram channel. Please don't miss out on the webinars. It's always educative, always captivating, and we share insights on forex trading as a whole. Please join us. Much love from 15xFX. See you next week, same time, same station. GMGM guys.